Hi, everybody. This is the Parent Pivot Podcast. I'm Steve Cummings.
And I'm Julia Cummings.
Okay, so time out here. If you are in your 20s or 30s, this podcast actually is for you. And you're probably going, why do I'm not a parent? That's because we would normally talk to parents of adult children. Today, we want to talk to adult kids.
Right. So if you are the parent,
Yes,
you can tell your kids about this.
absolutely.
Your adult children.
And just kind of listen and stuff like so. So if you're in your 20s or 30s, we have actually been there. Believe it or not. And we're so just so you know, our whole goal here is to create relationship with adult kids and remove the "I have to be right" part.
Yes.
We do not want fractured relationships. That's where we're coming from. In fact, if you want to mention to your parents, we have a book that's called "Doing Life with Your Adult Children." You'll love the subtitle. Keep your mouth shut and the welcome mat out. So I don't know how to do this, but I don't want to call them adult kids. So if you hear me say adult kids, please don't be offended. I'm just trying. That's what I've normally gone through when we talk to your parents.
Right.
We're not talking to your parents today. We're talking to you. And our whole goal here is to, hey, you could have a parent who's what, hon? Out of control.
Well, let's not call it out of control. Tries to have too much control.
Tries to have too much control.
Or is helicopter-ish.
Too much in your business.
Wants to give you advice when you aren't seeking advice.
Right. Yada, 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 like they say in Seinfeld.
Needs to be right.
Right. Correct.
Those are many of the things that we talk about.
Yeah. So anyway, mom and dad, thanks for sitting sidelines. And moms, I don't want to bag on you. I'm usually thinking that moms tend to be more of the helicopter parent than a dad. But a dad also will tend to come down on his adult kids about responsibility, college, job, being on time, career, all that stuff. So there's kind of a stereotype. There's a stereotype, isn't there? No?
Well, I hear you creating one.
I'm creating one. Sorry.
There may be, but I see both.
Okay. There's helicopter dads?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
I mean, it may look different than a mom, but definitely there. Yes.
Okay. So normally where we would help parents pivot from being that instructional parent and telling you what to do because they've done that for 18 years of their life. And some of them have gotten really, really good at it. Now you're an adult. You might be graduated from high school. You're off to college. Maybe you've graduated from college and you're living back at home. Maybe you've graduated from college and you're on your own in the same city, in a different city.
Maybe you're married.
That's why we're kind of targeting.
You have kids.
Yeah, we're kind of targeting 20s and 30s here. So we kind of get a large group. We will try not to refer to you as millennials, but that's our target audience today. And that's where we want to focus. So here's how we want to help you adult kids. We are on we are on your side. Okay. Again, we want to help your parents pivot from being that parent to partner. So where you can come into play is looking at some of these things and going, okay, there may be some friction going on in a relationship. And what do I need to do on doing that? So I have some ideas. Do you have some ideas?
Well, I think they probably have ideas. And part of what we would love to seek out from this age group is some of the things that you are struggling with your parents with. So if you can
go to Instagram
and DM us, or
direct message us on Instagram at Parent Pivot Podcast.
Yeah. Or Facebook or email.
Yeah. Please do that. And we'd love to hear what particular thing is going on and things. But let me back up and kind of the whole goal here is to, again, create relationship.
Yes.
So I'm trying to put myself back in my 20s and 30s. And, my parents are now in their 80s. I'm in my early 60s. And sometimes they still want to parent me, believe it or not. I mean, it's one of those things that just doesn't go away. We as parents have to work on keeping the mouth shut as I'm covering my mouth and the welcome mat out. Yeah. And that's not easy to do. Just as it's not easy to do. So like, for example, here's the analogy that I wanted to make of what it's like. So you as adult kids can understand. We all love puppies. Who doesn't love a puppy? Raise your hand. Well, we all love puppies. We see puppies go, oh, those are so great. So think about as an adult, as a child, as a teenager growing up, a young adult growing up, you have a puppy, right? You love this puppy. Well, guess what? That puppy doesn't know how to go to the bathroom. outside.
You train the puppy.
And it does all sorts of things. It chews on things it's not supposed to chew on. And so this is just this playful little puppy. And so as quote unquote, the parent to that puppy, you have had to take care of him or her. And there's a lot of joy that comes for that, but there's all this aggravation. So you have cared for that puppy. Now that puppy starts to become weaned and starts to be able to go, okay, I know how to go to the bathroom outside. I know I'm not supposed to chew on the table or whatever, or chew on this. I've got a toy. And they start to learn they're coming into that young adulthood as a puppy. And then all of a sudden you let them out in the backyard and they're like, woohoo, freedom. Here I go. And maybe they know they're not supposed to go check out that little black and white animal with that can spray, that has a tail. And you warn them, don't go near the skunk. Well, what's the puppy and the young adult dog going to do? It's going to go, oh, a friend, let's go over this. So that skunk sprays the dog and you want to say, I told you so. And now you're aggravated that you have to clean up this dog. And I think you have to give him a bath in tomato juice or something.
Something like that.
It's just a big hassle. And you're scolding them and you're shaming them. And it's like, it's been a big hassle to you. It's like, man, I just wish this.
You're cleaning up the dog's mess.
I'm cleaning up the dog's mess. And
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
We had a dog that would go into the neighbor's yard and roll in the poop.
Yes, she even rolled in her own poop.
I had to clean her up a lot.
Right.
It was very frustrating.
So I'm making this analogy, adult kids, young adults in your 20s and 30s. I'm making this analogy so that you can kind of understand the parent viewpoint. So when you understand where they're coming from, and especially I would say maybe moms more than dads, what I'm saying is some moms have grown up and said, all I want to do is be a mom. And so they have done an excellent job of raising their kids, taking you to, your sporting events, your concerts and to and from school or whatever that needs to be. And they've shown up at everything and been there. They've been outstanding parents and they've loved that. That's been a great season. And now you are on your own. You are that young adult dog. That's in my story of my analogy. And you want to go, hey, I got this. I want to go explore. I want to live life. I know the home that I came from. I know what mom and dad believe. If they've got a Christian faith, I know what they believe. Maybe you also believe it. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But you know their values. They raised you. They raised you right and wrong, whatever. And maybe you've had some rough relationship and maybe that hasn't been the case. I don't know. But anyway, as you're growing up, you've got that young puppy dog that's like going, yes, I want to go. So I'm just trying to give you this perspective to kind of look and go, you've got moms who've enjoyed doing that. Now all of a sudden you're out of the house, you're on your own, and they don't know what to do. So we have some podcasts for them. So please tell them to check us out. We have podcasts about empty nesting. What do you do with identity? We got tons of those. We're not talking to them. They're just listening in. We're talking to you. They've got this identity. Like, now what do I do?
Right.
So kind of, I'm trying to give you this kind of heart of understanding and awareness going, okay, I get that.
And what you guys should know is it's a difficult stage of life for most parents, making that transition.
And it doesn't go away overnight. And so what I want to say is there's change happening on both sides. Give each other, parents, we're telling parents to give their adult kids room to change. They're not going to be that 5, 15, 20-year-old quote unquote child. They're now an adult. And maybe there's some personality things that come up or past experiences and they're thinking, see, they never change. Well, I want to say the same thing to you. Give your parents room to grow because we're encouraging them to change and things. So give grace and acceptance to where they're at. Because remember, when you were raising that puppy to become an adult dog, that puppy didn't learn the first time or the second or the third. But it finally learned to go to the bathroom outside. It finally learned to listen to you when you said, don't go near that skunk. It stopped. It listened. But it took a while. And you gave it grace. And you loved it. And when they did really well, you said, way to go. Thank you. I don't have to do that tomato juice bath anymore. So anyway, grace and acceptance go a long way. Here's something else I would say too. I remember an incident. I mean, when we also don't want to be told, see, I told you so. And we're telling your parents, don't ever do that. It's not about being right. So adult kids, I want to say the same thing. It's not about being right. It's about being in relationship. So again, as an adult child myself, let me tell you a story. When I think I was 18, I think I was 18, might have been 17, but I had just gotten my license. And, you always get that admonishment from mom or dad or both. Hey, don't get any tickets, don't speed, don't do this, da, 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 da. And you're like, yeah, I know. Otherwise, guess what? Car insurance goes up, right? And nobody now I happen to pay my own car insurance. Maybe some of you had your parents pay for your car insurance, but that's one of the things. We also want you to be safe. So they're telling me all that stuff, right? And I get it. It's like, I want to fly on my own. Please leave me alone. That's what I'm thinking. So one day, you know what Steve did?
Got in a car accident.
No, I did not. I'm not going there.
Oh.
I didn't get a car accident.
You got a ticket.
I got a ticket. It wasn't for speeding though. I grew up in San Clemente, California, but down by the beach. So if you know where that is and you live in San Clemente, El Camino Real is downtown, and then Del Mar, you can turn, depending which direction you're going, you turn left, you head down, the two intersections of Main Street down there. And so as I was going down El Camino Real, I'm heading to the beach. I believe I was heading down there for something. And I turned left, and all of a sudden, it's just at a standstill. And I'm an impatient 17-year-old male. And I'm driving in my 66 Mustang that I was so proud that I have, and rebuilt the engine with my grandfather, my dad, and going, you've got to be kidding me. I am not sitting here. I don't know why this has stopped. And just about a little half block away, I could turn right, going the wrong way of a one-way street. But it was only about 4 or 5 car lengths, and then I'm in a parking lot. So I'm thinking, I got a way around this.
Just jog in there.
I'm just going to jog in there. I'm going to make that quick right turn. Yes, it's an illegal right turn. I'm going the wrong way in a one-way street. What's the big deal? This is how we think, all right? What's the big deal? So I go down there. I turn right. There's a car coming at me. Guess what car was coming at me?
Cop.
A San Clemente police car. And he turned on his lights, and I went, oh, crap. And I got my first ticket. Now, what's it going to feel like going home to tell mom and dad I got a ticket? It is not going to feel good. First of all, shame comes into play. I'm going to hear I told you so, and all things like that. Or I can hide it and not say anything. But at some point, it comes up on my record, and insurance goes up, and they will find out. What do you do? So what I'm trying to present adults, young adults, let's just call it young adults, young families, young adults. What I'm trying to present is, if we can come around and own our mistakes, as even though we, in our heart and mind, we're going to hear, oh my gosh, my parents are going to say this. If we can own that, guess what happens? Hopefully they listen to the podcast. They know not to say, I told you so. Hopefully. If they don't, you might want to send them a link because that's what we're kind of admonishing them to do. Hopefully they don't say that. But if they do, it lasts for a short time. Remember that shame is the enemy. They're not shaming you. It's that inner voice in our heads that says, I know I did something wrong, but shame says I'm a horrible person. You're not a horrible person. We just decided that we want to take life into our own matters, avoid any counsel that has been given to us, and we're going to learn by experience, which, guess what? Did I turn down any other streets that were one-way streets and going the wrong way? No.
You learned from your mistakes.
I learned from my mistake. And the sooner we can admit our mistakes and own it, a couple things happen. Those voices go away. Our parents and everybody else, your coworkers, your bosses, your friends. How many times you get irritated at a friend going, don't they see that this is stupid and what they're doing? If they would just admit it. But here's what we want to do. We want to spin it in our direction. Well, I would have been okay if the cop wasn't there. Well, it would have been, I want to spin it so I look like I was making the right decision when I really wasn't, and stuff. And so I just want to make sure that we call it like we call it. But the great thing about this is I'm maturing emotionally when I can say, yeah, I did that. And sometimes going to mom and dad, even privately, and saying, hey, you know what? I've been late to work. I got laid off. And dad, I remember every year you telling me, hey, try to be early. Early is on time. And things. And I haven't been, but I'm going to make that change. He's going to feel great because you're esteeming him. You're owning your mistake, and that is maturing you. And you're getting you're moving up the ladder of respect.
Respect is important.
It's important. All of a sudden, your parents go, "Hey, you know what? They got this. I don't need to hover. I don't need to get involved, and things." So that's one part of that is owning.
So you've given an example of a teenage boy, though.
Okay, you got one for a teenage woman?
Well, no, no, because we're not really talking to teenagers. I mean, if they're 18 to 20, yeah. But we're also talking to 20s and 30s,
right,
where you may have something that is actually a bigger issue than that. It could be a marriage you got into or a relationship you got into. Yep. It could be that you did something illegal. It could be, when you get into adulthood, the issues are bigger.
Adult things happen.
Yes. So this goes on no matter what age you are.
Yes.
And being able to go to the people that matter.
Yes.
Whether it's your parents or, like you said, other people.
Right.
And you can be honest, truthful, and own your crap.
Yes.
It makes a difference in respect, in relationship, in trust, all of those things.
Yeah. The other thing we want to talk about is boundaries. So let's say you're married and you've got kids, and either parents are maybe being demanding, they want you to do things a certain way, or they're offering advice or counsel that has been unsolicited, or they come over too much, unannounced, kind of like Marie Barone. If you ever watch Everyone Loves Raymond, you've got an intrusive mother or mother-in-law. What do? Do you want to jump in on that, Dr. Jill? You want me to go?
As the person that has the intrusion, so if my mom or mother-in-law,
so you want
or
to say
another in-law is intruding, it becomes imperative that the person that is related to that person speaks up and says something.
So in other words, you're going to talk to your mom or your dad. I would talk to my mom and my dad. I'm not going to talk to your parents, and you're not going to talk to my parents.
Right, unless because where that can get messy is if it's my parents and I refuse to say anything, and then you have to go to them. That can create a bigger issue than if I do. I should feel protection of our relationship to say to my parents, this isn't working. We need you to call first. We need you to not guilt us into being at Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever it is. All of those things. But it's up to me to have that conversation with my parents.
Right.
If I keep bowing to them, then there's problems with us.
Right. Because I'm getting frustrated because it should be you saying that. And there could be things in there like, well, I don't want to displease my parents. And sometimes we can throw that honor the father, honor the mother commandment. I think it's the third commandment. It's like, but that doesn't mean please, people please,
Yeah, there is a difference. If this is a problem for you, I would actually recommend getting some good counsel, because that is something that will be perpetuated over and over and over and over again in your marriage. And you might find yourself 20 years down the road where your spouse has been holding on to all of this stuff that's making them upset and mad, and it implodes at some point.
So what I hear you saying is, for those who might have kids and families, if that's your situation, this needs to be healed. Between husband and wife first. Make sure you're on the same page.
Right.
Then go pursue the right parent to child relationship.
Right. And if you are the person that your relationship with your parents matters more than this relationship,
that's a problem. Yeah.
So marriage is
leaving and cleaving. And actually, we've had our own in-law kids, and kids tell us this. When you get married, the person who knows you the best, it used to be mom and dad, but now it's your spouse.
Yeah.
Because they're living and breathing and with you for every moment of the day. Mom and dad aren't. They're in the empty nest. They're still sitting in the tree, or maybe they're out, traveling or doing whatever. But this relationship between husband and wife is now become number one. So even though, quote unquote, as dad, I might look at my 4 kids and go, well, I've got, experiences with them that's, 25 to 35 years in the building. But what I'm not privy to is what's been happening in the last, 4, 5, 10 years that they've been married, day to day. And that's where all the change, transformation comes, because you're bouncing all that stuff that you were raised with into a new situation, creating your own family. And us as mom and dad, we're not privy to that. Mm-hmm. So that number one relationship needs to be husband and wife. That's what Leave and Cleave is all about. Yeah. Honoring your mother and father means you're respecting them. Okay. You're honoring them because they're older. That doesn't mean that they're always right. In fact, we're trying to tell them on the podcast, you might not be right in this one. So don't push for being right. Push for relationship. And there's a respectful way to talk about boundaries. How would you talk about a boundary if you're trying to be respectful? It's like, hey, unsolicited advice. Parents. What's a respectful way to go to your parents to say, Mom and Dad? Well, how would you say it?
So always with validation first. Like, Mom and Dad, I know that you love me and you want the best for me.
And the kids and our marriage.
Right. And all of those things. You don't have to be married to do this conversation. But to just be able to validate them, and how they think that, and that you are important to them. That, I know that you love me, Mom and Dad. I know that you want the best for me. I need to draw a line here, and I need to ask you to respect the line. So it's very simple, actually.
Here's the line. You have always given great counsel, and I love that. But please don't offer that unless we ask you first.
There you go.
So you might be able to tell them, hey, can I have permission? You might tell them to
ask
first. Hey, can I have permission to speak into that? And if you don't want to hear it, say, this isn't the time.
No.
Can we talk about it another time? Or if you're done, I don't know, crying or being upset and you want to hear it, say, yeah, go ahead. And let them say their piece.
And we do tell your parents, if your parents watch,
if they listen to the
podcast, that to ask for permission to speak into something and to listen if your child says no.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, and to respect that. So that comes with just about any boundary. It's like, again, you want to tell them, I'll always think of it being a sandwich piece of communication. Tell them how much you love them, validate them. You've appreciated this, that, and the other. Here's where we are today. And you could even throw some things in there that you want to own. Hey, I know I haven't made every decision perfect in my life, and I need to do this on my own. And I know that's hard to watch. But what I need is this. I need you to wait till you're invited in to speak up about that. Yeah. You do, again, close with the good stuff. I love you. I want a relationship with you. This is impinging on that. And I just need you to respect our boundary. So you're going good, the truth, put maybe some ownership thing in there if you need to, and then close with some good stuff.
I'm going to put a little caveat in here.
Here comes a caveat, everybody.
So if you are an adult child that lives at home with your parents and you're not married, this creates a different dynamic because your parents, you are in their home. You are living off of them in some way, most likely.
Maybe you're not paying rent.
Yeah, even if you are paying rent, it could be that they're not making you pay as much as
not
you
paying
cost.
Market value rent. Let me put it that way.
Right, and you may cost more than that actually to be in the home. So, if they're feeding you or whatever, that does give them a little more leeway to speak into your life. Now, how they do that should be done with the same respect that I'm asking you to come to them with, where they come to you and they are validating you, saying, hey, I know that this may be a difficult conversation. It's also difficult for us. We're not comfortable with this behavior. Maybe you're sleeping till noon every day. That's really hard for a parent to watch.
Because it comes across to them as you're being lazy and irresponsible.
Yeah, and even if you work till midnight, sometimes that's just not the greatest thing. So there are different dynamics that play into things that if you went away to school, you didn't ever have to deal with. And now if you're back at home, you are having to deal with your parents talking to you about these things and it's bugging you. So if you together can talk about how to talk to each other with respect, that would be really great.
And that's really what this really is. In any human relationship, it comes to communication skills. Marriage counseling, it's like we're hearing each other, but we're not listening to each other.
Right.
And that really is in regard to an empathy gift and saying, hey, what's it like to be in the other person's shoes? What's it like to be on the other side of me? Oh, before you ask that question, you better be prepared to want to hear that.
Right.
You're gonna hear some things saying that's real honest and vulnerable. And there are things that, of course, we're not all perfect parents, we're not perfect fathers, mothers, kids, whatever. And I work in the premise like I want to be a good version of myself. So if there's some things I want to work on, please tell me, but I'm going to ask permission for it. I don't want it unsolicited.
But I will say this, the number one thing in talking to anybody, whether it be your parents, your children, a friend, a coworker, whatever, that basic principle of validating someone before you say what you need to say softens any relationship.
Right.
So that's just really important to be able to do.
And on that note, let me just add one more piece. We've talked about grace and acceptance, right? We talked about owning. Yeah. Now we've talked about boundaries. Let me talk about the other one, which I just now forgot.
Was it the breathe? Or are you
yeah. Okay. So let's talk about a pause button. I call it a pause button.
Okay.
Because here's what's going to happen. You'll be with your parents in some setting or on a phone call conversation or a text message or an email, whatever it is. In fact, try to stay away from text messages when it comes to communicating this stuff. They do not work.
It's not a good way to converse.
It's a disaster that's ready to catapult you into a deeper issue. Okay. These conversations need to be face to face, not over a phone call. If you're in different states, do FaceTime, do something. Obviously don't bring it up and saying right away, boom, here's what I want to talk about. Breathing. Okay. A pause button. Here's what happens in our hearts. Something happens that triggers us to the past when we were kids. Mom always did this. Dad always did that, whatever it is. And here comes that emotion up inside me. And boy, the first thing I want to do, just like I did when I was driving the wrong way on the one-way alley, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to react. And as soon as I react, I'm now escalating the situation. Mm-hmm. It is not going to go well for either one of you in that situation. So we highly, are you listening? We highly recommend creating what I would call a pause button. And that is this. You hit the pause button and you go, what is going on right now? I'm being remembered of some instances from the past or, that have happened that are making me angry, making me feel insecure, causing me shame, helplessness, hopelessness. You think I'm an idiot. I feel like a child. Whatever's happening is going on inside you and they're still talking, right? So what I want to do is, hey, that is the prime time to hit pause. Take a deep breath. Just like that. All right. And that doesn't mean disengage and start edging over to the cynical side going, here we go again, because that's going to bring danger as well. Do not go that direction. But what you want to do is going, okay, I'm in this right now. Here we go. It's game time. Are you going to fight or are you going to sit back? Because when we fight, we fracture relationship. Okay, that is just not going to, and again, we're pro relationship. We want you to have relationship with your parents. So I've got to hit that pause button. I got to learn to develop. And guess what? It's going to take time to put that into practice. We tell parents to do that themselves. And so we're telling you to do it yourself. Guess what? You won't get it right the first time. In fact, I guarantee you that something will come up. And if I were to ask you, did you use the pause button? You would have gone, oh, that's right. I listened to that podcast or watched that YouTube broadcast and they talked about the pause button. It's not going to happen. It just won't. Just like a billboard, you need to pass it by 7 times. It's going to take a while to put it in use. And this is where I go with the first point we made. Give yourself grace. Give your parents grace. You are moving the needle forward into changing. And that takes time.
Takes practice.
It takes practice. So you hit the pause button and you kind of go, all right, I'm being reminded of something from the past. My parents are behaving like that. okay, I'm going to give them grace. And so when they're done, I can sit back and hopefully if I've done this right, I can go, I get you. So the first thing I'm going to do is validate what they said. What I'm hearing is that you're really upset about this or really fearful about that. I get it. That makes sense. So you're diffusing that end of it and you're giving yourself a chance to go, I want to respond calmly. We have a story to tell about responding calmly, don't we?
I don't know what story.
When we got kicked off the airlines.
Oh, we're not going to tell.
We're not going to tell a story. It's a long story. Yeah.
Very long.
Look at these two faces. Do we look like a couple that should have been kicked off an airlines?
Definitely not.
We'll tell that another story. But anyway, you remain calm, remain calm. Breathe, pause button, compare. Is that what's happening? No. I'm going to give grace. I'm aware of what's going on. I can control my emotions. That's not what's happening. I want to have a relationship. I don't need to be right. And nothing needs to be solved in that moment.
No, and I want to say this though too, because this is something that somebody's going to ask is, does that mean I don't get to stick up for myself or that my feelings don't matter?
Right.
And the answer to that is no, of course that all matters very much. But in that moment, not reacting is the goal, because that actually will make it easier for you to come back to at some point. Sit down with your parents and have that conversation saying, hey, remember when we had this conversation? I know that what you were after was this, this, and this. I need to let you know I was hurt during that conversation.
Yeah.
So you're taking responsibility for your hurt. You're allowing that to be there. You're allowing yourself to share that. But you didn't lash out in the moment.
Right. That's what we're trying to minimize.
Screw you. See you later. Bye.
Right. So in that moment, if you can't respond and you're trying to remain calm, you don't have to continue the conversation. You may be able to say, you know what? I'm not in a good space right now to keep this conversation going. So can we revisit it another time? I understand you're upset. I need time to process what you've said. What we're just trying to point out is we don't want you overreacting out of emotion and fracturing relationship.
Yeah.
We want you to take the high ground. We're telling your parents
same
thing. Again, you can tell them, hey, get a copy of Jim Burns' book, Doing Life with Your Adult Children. It literally says, keep your mouth shut and the welcome mat out, and things. And they can look that up on Amazon. Jim's great. We've had him on the podcast. So point them to that podcast and they will love that and things. So anyway, so we've been talking about all these things. Is there anything else that we're missing?
No, I hope that this hits home for some of these adult children.
You're not children. We're just, that's
and really, that hearing this while we're also talking to your parents, that there is some communication skills happening.
Yeah.
And I apologize. I'm sick. That's why I'm drinking hot water here.
At least she hasn't coughed a whole lot. She usually coughs a lot. But do this. Send us a direct message to Instagram. Let us know if you like this. Like it. Share it. We're trying to build our audience, and you are the center of it. And we're trying to help your parents back up and be partners and not parents. So the more we can help them, and we do this out of ministry, we are not making any money off this. As you see, there are no commercials, there are no ads. Isn't that cool? We're not after any national attention or whatever. We just want to help you have good relationships with mom and dad.
But we would like a bigger audience.
We would like
because we feel like we've got a good message.
Yeah. So if you're over 5 feet, no I'm kidding, 5 feet tall, I'm kidding. Dad joke, cut me some slack, right? Whatever. Anyway, what else do we have? Anything else? Like us, rate us.
Like us.
Subscribe to us on YouTube, which is it's somewhere along the bottom here.
Subscribe. YouTube,
comment.
YouTube and Instagram.
And maybe we'll go on TikTok.
Yeah, we're talking about.
We have a director of social media, which is our 30-year-old daughter.
Yeah. So like us, do all the things. You guys are young. You know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, you know what to do. Please help us. Hopefully this goes viral. You know what? We've never had anything viral. I'm going to put a link in the show notes. Jamie Lynn and I did this father-daughter dance, and I really wanted it to go viral because it was completely different. But I would love if this video went viral and you sent it to all your adult friends. You sent it to all your friends and said, hey, Steve and Julia are on our side. They want to help us get out of these messes with our parents, help us have some good communication and be in relationship and not have to be right with them. So
yes.
So
do all of the social media things.
Yeah, but we are not starting another podcast.
And leave reviews. We need reviews, stars, reviews. I don't know, all that kind of stuff.
Send us coffee. I'm a coffee drinker. Julia likes jelly beans.
Only Jelly Bellies.
Only Jelly Bellies. Anyway, that's enough. So even though you're not parents, thanks for joining us on this edition of the Parent Pivot Podcast. We'll be back next week with more.
Bye.